Okay, would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, it's good to see. We got a pretty lively crowd out here this evening. That's pretty nice. I like seeing that. Let's start with Superintendent's report, please.
Good evening, board. Good evening, community. Dr. Klein, there's been a request for the drums at the beginning of every board meeting. Sets a nice tone. Great job, kids. Great job. Looking forward to your presentation tonight. Just a few announcements for my report. We are gearing up for the Envision Day. So we've been spending a lot of time on our Explore, Engage, Experience work. I'm looking forward to celebrating and doing that work on October 3rd. Myself, Mr. Clayton, Chief Ganan, Julie French attended the Reimagining Gun Violence in Our Community, which was held at New Beginnings. Really saw some enlightening data on what work's being done. Due to what the media would like us to believe, we're actually doing better than we have in the years past. We still have a long way to go in our community, but there is good work being done. And we have a follow-up meeting coming up here at the beginning of October. September 5th was our first e-learning day and professional development day. I'm not going to steal any thunder, but I want to say thank you to those who participated in that and provided the professional development for our staff. It was a great day spent for all of our staff. Last week, 4 board members, myself and Mr. Clayton, attend the National School Board CUBE conference in Chicago. It was a great experience. We learned a lot. We were able to make great connections, and really glad that we were able to take advantage of that being in Chicago. I want to give a Warrenville shout out to the Warren High School students and staff. September 1st was our homecoming, and they held an outdoor pep rally. It was an amazing event. It was a beautiful day. The kids were awesome. The staff were great. It was just great to feel that normalcy. I think that was the first time they had done a pep rally like that in 20 plus years. Great job to Mrs. Taylor and her team. I mentioned the Envisioning Day on Tuesday, October 3rd at Marriott East. We are bringing together 175 community members, including students, staff, parents, business partners, to reimagine what our next 5 years will look like in Warren Township. We have a strategic plan in place. This will be the iteration of that current strategic plan, and we will create our next 5-year strategic plan. So, board, I know you should have received invitations to that, and we hope to that you'll be able to make that. At this time, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I want to call David Granson to the podium. David, if you could come up for a minute. I wanted to introduce David. David is the father of Kylan Granson. And for those Colts fans out in the crowd, Kylan is a tight end for the Indianapolis Colts. And I'll let Dad share a little bit about that. But currently, the Granson family, David, his wife Heather, and their son Kylan, are working with one of our schools, Brookview Elementary, in supporting literacy. And we met yesterday, or Tuesday's yesterday. We met yesterday and are exploring what an expanded partnership might look like. And so I invited David here tonight to introduce himself and share a little bit about that. Is your button on? The mic.
Can you hear me now? Got it. All right. Good evening. I'm happy to be here. I thank Dr. Hanson for inviting me. As he said just a few minutes ago, me and my wife and son have a foundation. It's a literacy-based foundation where we provide books and literacy resources to schools in underserved communities or to any community really who has a need and wants us there. Our foundation is called KG's Kids, the initials of my son. My son is an avid reader. He grew up reading. There's a really unique and funny story behind that. I'll say that for another time. But he grew up as as an avid reader. If you ask him, that's his favorite thing to do. He just happens to be really good at football, but his favorite thing to do is read. And when the NFL, long story short, when the NFL started to become a reality for him, he wanted to give back. He felt like he was very fortunate in his situation. Me and his mom, both being educators, always provided him with the resources that he needed to excel and be successful in school. He was a really good student, and that was important to him. He got into some really good colleges. He was actually accepted to Harvard, but turned them down because he wanted to play Division I college football. So he ended up at Rice, which is what we call the Harvard of the South. We're from Texas. And anyway, he again, as his story takes a lot of twists and turns. He took the long way around to success. It wasn't easy for him. He left Rice after 2 years when his coach got fired. There was no transfer portal or anything like that at the time. So when you leave school, you're the only one who knows you leave school, and you've got to figure out what to do on your own. He was able to get into SMU in Dallas, Texas. Walked on, was able to stay there. SMU is a very expensive place to go to school if you've ever researched that. And so he was able to walk on. They were glad to have him on the team, but because it was so expensive, I mean, to the tune of like $75,000 a semester to go to SMU. He was able to get himself an academic scholarship. So he was able to stay and try to make the team, and he did that. And had a very successful 2 years leading up to him being drafted to Indianapolis. Go Colts. Out of SMU. Saying all that just to say that if it was not for his academic success, he would not have had those opportunities, and he created that last opportunity for himself, which propelled him to the NFL, which is the reason why we're here. He decided he wanted to give back. He felt like he was fortunate. He had some breaks along the way, and he wants to give other kids some breaks along the way too if they need them, or even if they just want them. And this is the way we've decided to do it. He wanted to do it this way, and we jumped right behind him. And again, we met with Dr. Hanson. We've been in Indianapolis for about a year now, and we've been trying to find the right partnership, like-minded people in a community that would welcome the help as much as we wanted to be there. And after yesterday's meeting, me and my wife had a long, long conversation yesterday, and I think we found the right people in the right place. So I am eager to, we left yesterday's meeting with kind of a gentleman's handshake of a partnership. I'm very eager to finalize the details and get this thing going because we're excited to get here and get to work, get to know the families of this community, and work with your kids. So thank you again, Dr. Hanson, and thank you guys for having me.
David, would you mind sharing a little bit about how you're already supporting Brookview?
So Brookview Elementary, we have what we call the KG's Kids Literacy Support System. And so that's what we have. There's 5 initiatives in that support system. In any school that we partner with, we give them all of that support with all of those initiatives. We started out at Brookview Elementary. I met Josh Davis, who is the principal there, very unique and very bright young leader, very impressed with him. And he has a heart for not only the kids of this community, but literacy as well in reading, and wanted to do a lot of things to help improve the literacy scores with the kids in his school. So the first thing that we did, and this is my wife's brainchild. We're both former educators, or still current educators. We've been in education and teaching in some form or fashion for more than 20 years. And this initiative was her brainchild, that she feels for the first-year teachers, the brand-new first-year, right out of college most of the time, that they just need to have help, some resources, something to pull from, something to, just some things to have to help them through that first year. So all of the first-year teachers, brand-new teachers, there were 6 of them at Brookview Elementary. We gifted them a classroom library for their classroom. Started it with 20 books. There's 4 adoptions that we have for them to choose, and they all chose racially diverse libraries. So on September the 5th, we went out. The corporate partner that we have that sponsors that for us is Bluebell Ice Cream. So again, if this is finalized, your kids will be getting a lot of Bluebell ice cream. They love to give ice cream away. But along with Bluebell, who is our corporate partner, we presented those teachers with their classroom libraries, gave them ice cream, gave Mr. Davis a signed coach football because Colin, my son, was not able to be there. He was working. And that's how we started the relationship with them. We're going to move along. I think the next thing we'll do with Brookview is our financial literacy workshop. And we have a financial literacy workshop that we do. We partner with Charles Schwab to do that, where they send out, they have access to 1,000 employees that they'll send out at any point in time. And they have probably, I don't know, upward of 15 different workshops depending on the school and the age of the kids. That is a very important thing for me and my wife and my family, that because, I don't know, we were late in the game coming to our financial literacy, kind of where we are right now, and my son as well. We wanted to make sure that he, in the position that he's in, understood money, how to deal with money, how to handle money, and how to keep his money. And that's what these workshops are designed to help your kids to do as well. So we think that's really important, and those workshops are really good, and they do a really good job of putting those workshops on. We have a couple other ones, but the last one I want to talk about is the big one. It's called the KG's Carnival of Books. It is a free book fair that we will give to every school that we partner with, where the kids all walk away with 3 free brand new books. And that'll happen later this spring. So when we develop a relationship and we start a relationship, it's not just a one-time thing. We don't just walk in and give stuff away, sign autographs, take pictures, and you never see us again. We want to develop a relationship. We want to be around. We feel like our foundation works best when we're embedded in the community and we get to know the people and understand what the kids need and can help them succeed. So.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hanson. Tonight, we have some notables in our midst tonight. Some former Warren Township school board members who we asked come in and share some wisdom and guidance, and just to overall get familiar with how we do business and who we are. Haven't seen them in a while, close friends of ours, and thought maybe it'd be nice to have them come in. So we've got 3 here that I'd like to introduce and tell you a little bit about who they are. First off, I've got Ann Mead. Ann, will you mind standing, please? Ann Mead was the school board for MSD in 1994 to 2006. She served 2 terms as president, worked with 3 superintendents, Don Pennington, Craig Hintz, and Peggy Hinckley. All 3 of her kids graduated from Warren Central in '89, 1993, and also '95. She was employed for 3 years between '87 and 2000 with the Easter Seals Crossroads as a social worker doing parent support for families with children with disabilities or delays in development. She was a grant writer and wrote grants and program development. In 2000 to 2010, about 10 years, she worked with Orchard School as coordinator of Kids Connect After School program. Upon retirement in 2010, she served as the coordinator of the Old Bethel and Partners Food Pantry until 2020. Currently, she chairs the Administrative Council of Old Bethel United Methodist Church. Thank you, Ann, for your school and community service. I'd also like to introduce Mr. Jay Weiss. Mr. Weiss graduated from Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology in 1981 with a Bachelor's of Science degree in Civil Engineering. It is known that Rose-Hulman was at one time one of the best, rated as one of the best engineering schools in the nation. He is registered as a professional engineer in Indiana. Mr. Weiss is engineering consultant experience in various industries, including residential, commercial, municipal, industrial, roadways, and bridges. In addition to being a registered professional engineer in Indiana, he's a former or a past registered engineer in Ohio. His professional experience is that as an entrepreneur, he owns the Wise Building Solutions Incorporated, currently 2016 to present. He started and built a utilities construction company in the Indianapolis Midwest area. Work included site work, demolition, fencing, foundations, drilling piers, underground conduits, vaults, ground grid, and SWPPP, whatever that means. He's completed a substation project for various clients, including AES, AEP, Hoosier Electric, Wabash Valley, Burns McDonnell, as well as other ground duct banks and vaults in the downtown Indianapolis for IPS. Correction, IPL. The work was completed in Indiana and also in Ohio and West Virginia. His Warren Township experience included serving on the Warren Township Human Relations Advisory Council, very powerful council back in the day that did a lot of good work. And to tell you the truth, I don't know whatever came of that council, but it made a major impact in our community. He served on the board for 17 years, 4 elected terms, and 1 year partial term to replace a board member that had stepped down. He has 4 sons who attended Warren schools, Brookview Elementary, Lowell Elementary, Stony Brook Middle School, and also Warren Central. Alongside his wife Sharon, they were involved in several community and school activities. PTSA organization for 26 years, Warren Central Band Booster for 4 years, Warren Little League Baseball for 17 years, Warren Wrestling for 28 years, Cross Country 6 years, Warren Central High School registration for 17 years, Warren Township Home Fest Fun Run for 17 years, and Warren Arts and Education Foundation Tree Fest for 20 years. He's currently serving on the Warren Township Building Corporation Board. Thank you, Jay, for your service as well. Our next former board member is Frank Hancock. Frank and Linda Hancock founded Sports Graphics in 1986. Over the last 30-plus years, Sports Graphics has developed into an enterprise that is a multifaceted provider of event, signage, and logistics support services. Sports Graphics is also a parent company of Section 127, a full-service creative agency located in downtown Indianapolis. The company's commitment to excellence and on-time service has been rewarded with multiple new annual events and the enhancement of long-term relations with existing clients. Frank remains active today in the business along with his wife and 3 children. Frank is a 1970 graduate of Ball State University, where he served as vice chairman of the board of trustees from 2006 to 2016. He was awarded the Ball State President's Medal of Distinction in 2016 and honored as a Ball State Alumnus of the Year on the 100th anniversary of the school in 2018. Frank has also served on several civic boards, including Indianapolis Zoo, 500 Festival, Payback Foundation, Pacers Foundation, Warren Township School Board from '98 to 2006, and as chairman of the Community Health Network Foundation, 2008 to 2020, in addition to actively participating annually in many other charitable events. Frank has received acknowledgement for his civil support by forming Indianapolis mayors Stephen Goldsmith, Bart Peterson, and Greg Ballard, Governor Mitch Daniels, and Governor Eric Holcombs both awarded Frank the Sagamore of the Wabash in 2013 and 2023, the highest distinction for service given by the state. Thank you, Frank, for your service as well. I'm really excited that they were able to come and be a part of what we've got here, just to see how, you know, how things have grown since they were last here. And so again, I appreciate and thank you for coming. Oh, we're gonna do this swearing. You wanna do that now? Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna turn this over to Andrew Manna, our attorney, swearing in the Warren Township School Police Chief and Officer.
Mr. President, members of the board, Andrew Manna from Churchill and Antrim, and we have Chief of Police Ginnon and Officer Seedorf coming up. They've elected to be sworn in together to show their collaboration here as officers. I state your name.
I, Shane Gannan,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
I will support the Constitution of the United States,
I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and that I will be faithful
and that I will be faithful
and bear allegiance to the state of Indiana,
and bear allegiance to the state of Indiana,
the county of Marion,
the county of Marion,
city of Indianapolis,
city of Indianapolis,
and the Metropolitan School District of Warren Township Schools.
and the Metropolitan School District of Warren Township Schools.
I will support the Constitution and laws thereof.
I will support the Constitution and laws thereof.
I will, to the best of my skill and judgment,
I will, to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without prejudice,
without prejudice,
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
for the office I hold
for the office I hold
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
Okay, very good. And now, words from our student council president. Hold on, wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. Chief, what's going on?
Just teasing, Dr. Klein.
Raymond Park Intermediate Middle School. Dr. Klein.
President Dorsey, Superintendent Hanson, School Board, it is an honor to be here tonight, and thank you for inviting Raymond Park out to be your showcase school tonight. But really, as the principal with a failing voice, I think there's probably somebody who could do a little bit better job of introducing Raymond Park. And so, ladies, if you can hear me, this is your cue. our very own Raymond Park cheerleaders. And just a word about our cheerleaders and our cheerleading sponsor. At many schools, cheerleading is a fall sport and a winter sport, not at Raymond Park. We start in the spring. We go all summer long, and when the fall sports are just starting, we are already in mid-season form. I would like to thank Coach Leanne McGregor and Coach Dacia Simon for your commitment to the program. Thank you very much. I think you also saw in the back of the room, as they were going back, we have some members, and you heard them already a little bit maybe, of Raymond Park's percussion bucket jam crew. Instead of bringing their drums, they brought buckets from Lowe's, I believe it is, and they are headed up by Mr. Brooks. Mr. Brooks, can you and the crew give us just a quick ditty of one of your percussion jams, please? So there you go. If you haven't figured it out, Raymond Park is in the house tonight. So thank you, students, for coming out. Hey.
We couldn't see the drummers back there. Can they stand up or come forward so we can see who was playing those drums? All right. Okay. Yes, they did a good job. Yes. Do we want them to come up and shake our hands?
Well, we have big plans for everybody to come up if you'll have us when we're done, because we've got more. We have more. Yes, we do. Let me get the slideshow started here. And so if you haven't seen it already, out in our lobby here, we have our Raymond Park bulletin board. And if you get an opportunity to look closely at the bulletin board, you will see we have students in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And what a wonderful time that 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade year is. If you can imagine elementary school size students coming to us in 5th grade and leaving us just 4 years later, high school size students. I like to joke, they obviously they look different, they sound different, they even smell a little bit different sometimes when they come in versus when they leave. And I think adults in the room, you'd probably agree, we probably don't want to do that part of life over again. And we get that. And when you're a middle school educator, you embrace that. And so when you look at that board outside, you will also see some data in the middle. And since it's a time in life where students are developing emotionally, intellectually, as well as physically, we have adopted the mindset of growth is our mindset. And so I don't want to bore you with numbers, but to give you a little idea of where we're coming up from on this, this is a snapshot of our Raymond Park Middle School math NWEA growth from 2022 and 2023. And then after that, we have a snapshot of our reading growth from 2020 to 2023, last school year. I give you this year's growth data, but it hasn't been determined yet. We have taken NWEA as a benchmark or a baseline to start this year. The most useful value of NWEA for us, since it's not a criterion-based test, it's a norm referenced, and so it doesn't just test kids on 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th grade standards. It tests kids, it's a leveled test, so kids get all kinds of difficulty of questions shot at them. If they get it right, it gets more difficult. If they get it wrong, it gets a little less difficult, but it finds their level, and then it compares them against other students their age. And so we need another measurement. We need our winter scores, and we need our spring scores to see how students are growing. When you take a close look at this data, though, what you would see is, and again, I know we're cramped on time, and I don't want to spend too much. This is the grade levels that took it last year. These are the number of students students, now we have more students than this. These are the students who were there at the start of the year, got a score, and then at the end of the year and got a score, because it takes those two measurements in order to get results. Percentage of students who met growth projections, if you're following my cursor here, you would expect in a norm reference environment 50% to represent 1 year of growth, and you'd notice in math that we are above 50%. In fact, sixth grade math was 84% of the kids hit their growth projections. We move out to the right, and for those of you who remember statistics, you remember something called a median conditional growth percentile. You may need to look that up later. I have to look it up frequently myself. However, but anything over 50 would be 1 year of growth, and to the degree above that, obviously the higher it is, the better, all the way up to 99. And then this last column, school conditional growth percentile. This is the column that compares us to other schools who started with a similar level of RIT score, it's called, and had the same number of days of instruction between taking the test. And you can see last year in math, we compared favorably at the 87th percentile, the 99th percentile, and the 69th percentile. And when we switch it over to reading, it gets even more impressive. You can see out to the right, we were in the 95th percentile, the 95th percentile, and the 97th percentile when compared to other schools. Now, don't get it, I don't want to be mistaken here. These are not the percentage of kids who are at proficiency in passing the test. We know, though, that in order for kids to reach proficiency, they've got to grow. And so, yes, growth is our mindset, but we also keep our eye on proficiency as well, knowing it's growth that's going to take us over the top. And ladies and gentlemen, this doesn't happen by accident. In fact, right now, since we got our benchline NWEA scores for this school year, one thing we try to do at the middle level is help kids take more ownership of their learning. And that happens one student at a time. In fact, right now in the months of September, October, and it will even bleed into November, teachers in language arts and math are meeting one-on-one with students during the school day and setting NWEA goals, because when we take it again in December, that'll be our first growth measurement, and then when we take it again in the spring, we'll get another growth measurement. And so to give you a little bit of a flavor of what that looks like and what that sounds like, I would like to invite two very special guests up. If I could have 8th grade teacher, Miss Rachel Moyer, and 8th grade student, I knew I was going to get this wrong, Jael Vargas Diego, if you could come forward and show the school board and our audience a sample of what a goal-setting meeting looks like.
Thanks for having us. Jael, thank you so much for coming tonight. You know that we are here today to talk about NWEA, and we took the test in August, and we took two tests. We took a language test and a reading test, but today we're going to focus on reading, okay? And as we're going through the data, we're going to write ourselves a SMART goal. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely, okay? Okay. So as we look at your scores, so just dive right in, we know that you scored a 215 on the reading score. So then what does that mean? Well, NWEA tells us that shows that we're a little bit shy of proficiency in the 8th grade, but the great news is that you're showing a lot of growth over time. So let's look at your scores over time. What do you notice about your scores since like 6th grade?
I was a 206 and now I'm a 215.
Yeah, that's great. So like from back here, you have shown so much growth, and that is what we're looking for. Now, you know also that NWEA tells us, it gives us a prediction of how well you might do on the next test. So if you're at 215, the next time we take it, it says that you could get 219. What's the difference between 219 and 215?
A 4-point difference.
4 points. And so our specific goal is that coming up, you're going to try to get at least 4 points on the next test. And then how will we know that you have it? How will we know that you have achieved that goal? When you get what score?
At least a 219.
At least a 219. Perfect. So then we want to think about what is it that we can do to achieve that goal. And of course, there's lots of things we can do, like doing all our work. But then let's be specific. And which of these things do you feel like, I'm doing this, I want to keep doing this, maybe I could work on this?
Yeah, I think I will be attending more school regularly engaging with the text in class, monitoring my grades, and reading at home, and specializing my playlist.
Yeah, I think that would be perfect because the NWEA does give us, the reading test is broken down into 3 sections, vocabulary, nonfiction, and literature. And they're telling us that based on the last test, literature is your strength. But if we wanted to focus something, we would focus on vocabulary. So we'll make sure that our playlist is focused on vocabulary. Then we want to look at why does this matter? So let's look at relevancy here. What are some things that seem like they're important?
I think these are important to identify my strength as a learner and identifying my focus for a learner.
Yeah, for sure. And then also just want to point out that NWEA is a really great predictor of how well you'll do on other standardized tests, as well as iLearn, which will come up again in the spring. And this could be our opportunity to really show mastery and proficiency, okay? All right, so one last thing is timeliness. We'll take the test again in December. So that gives us about 2 months to really focus up on our action items. And Jael, do you believe that if we focus for a couple of months, that you can get these 4 points?
Yes, I believe we can do this.
I do too. You can totally do it. Don't we all believe
Ladies and
that?
gentlemen, do you believe?
Good job.
All right, very good. Thank you, Jael. Thank you, Ms. Moyer. We appreciate. We have almost 1,100 students at Raymond Park, and knowing that that's going to happen with a math teacher and a language arts teacher, that's why it takes us from September to the first week in November. We're going to have 2,200 student conferences so that students can better understand what that score means and hopefully take a little bit greater ownership in their learning. Now, I do have one more segment tonight, and I'm going to call some students forward, but I'm not going to tell you why I'm calling them forward yet, but trust me, you're going to like this. And so if I can have the following students please come forward and stand out in front of the school board, please, and face the audience. Not to make you nervous or anything, but you're on camera, and you're going to be streamed out there in the digital world. If I could have, and again, hold your applause, please, Katie Vokes, Sarai Batiste, Wendell Marlin, Journey Zachary, Jacob Murphy, Malaya Haynes, Kylie Hacker, Miles Gilbert, Roberto Atletinko, Joanna Barbon Lopez, Jamai Pettigrew, Catherine Martinez Armendaris, Kenneth Vermillion, Jacob Lightcap, and Caden Lewis. If you could come forward, please. NWEA is a really great test for showing us student growth, but like any good test or any good system, it can be spoofed, it can be tricked. For those of you who go bowling, if you throw 4 gutter balls in a row and your opponent sees that, he might give you a few more pins the next time you bowl. But that's the same ways in NWEA. You can have a bad day testing, which throws off your results. And so to make sure I was inviting the right students, I look back to prior year performance, and these students did not spoof the system. The students that you are looking at before you now were in the 99th or highest percentile of growth in language arts or math NWEA for the 22-23 school year. Now, students, you know you're only as good as your last score, and your conference, you've either had it or it's upcoming soon, and we look forward to seeing that continued growth this year. Ladies and gentlemen, you have seen Raymond Park's school spirit through our cheerleaders, our performance spirit through our bucket crew. You've seen our academic spirit here with our students demonstrating high growth, and with Ms. Moyer and Jael showing us what a conference looks like. I think this is not a secret anymore. There was a secret among principals that when you speak in front of the board, you need to be brief but magnificent. And so Dr. Klein can be brief, but it's the students and staff at Raymond Park that make us magnificent every day. And so, oh, there's a few more people here. Before we start, we did have some staff come out tonight, and so if you could also please stand. I'm pleased to announce Sandy Oliva and Amy McCulley, who are ML teachers. Our specialist, Parrish Williams, please stand. Our family engagement liaison, Crystal Walker. And then my administrative team, Amy Piscotti, Shandy Walker, Bill Halpin, Gina Simmons. And I'd be remiss also, Officer Rohr. I know you're pulling double duty tonight, but also Officer Rohr is over at Raymond Park every day as well. If I missed somebody, you must have snuck in on me. I apologize. But if it pleases the school board, I would love to have the opportunity for all these folks to shake your hand this evening.
Can you have the parents stand too, please?
Oh, and thank you. Yes, parents of students, please stand. Who did I forget? Hold on, I forgot somebody. Come forward, sir. Come forward. This is a Dr. Klein. This is my spoof, I'm afraid. Come on forward, sir. Remind me of your name. Javon, last name. One more time. I apologize, Javon, for forgetting you on the list. 99th percentile of growth. Congratulations. Are there any questions or comments from the board? I'd be glad to take them.
So proud of you. Give yourselves a pat on the back, young men and ladies. Awesome. Keep up the good work.
All right, hey, form a line and let's shake the school board's hands.
Dr. Klein, can you have
Cheerleader. Oh. Cheerleaders, bucket crew, please come forward. Staff, please come forward. Jael, I know you're out there. Please come forward. Yeah, there you are. I am so sorry. Good job, ladies. Good job.
You know, I would like to, any of the parents that are still here, any of the parents of the students that are still here, are there any parents that are still here of the students? Could you come up? Because without your help, I tell you, we are so proud of you working with your students. So parents, could you please come up? We would love to shake your hand for a job well done. You're doing an awesome job. Good job. Yes. Okay, good. Good job. Good job. Proud of you. Proud of your students. Good job. Good job. Oh, girl, yes. Are you? It was so fun. Yeah. Yes, it was. Good job. I tell you, I'm so proud of you. And your children. Yes, you all are so, your mother's done a good job. I shook your hands. Everybody's hands. You guys are doing a good job. Yes, yes. Good job. Thank you, parents.
Good evening. I hope everyone is doing well. Today I'm going to discuss a few follow-ups, some concerns, likes, as well as upcoming events. Warren Central held homecoming in the beginning of September, like Dr. Hanson stated in the beginning. This year was special for multiple reasons. First, we had our first pep rally since the pandemic. Due to the success, we plan to use this as a framework for future pep rallies. Second, the homecoming dance, students and faculty truly enjoyed themselves. As student council president, I frequently revisit our student feedback form to ensure that StuCo stays on top of new and helpful ideas. The most recent suggestion that gained popularity amongst the students were students that graduated are wanting to return to Warren Central to provide the support for current students, like they would like to return to the high schools, the middle schools that they went to, things like that. I will be discussing this with Principal Taylor to see how we can accommodate this for the students. Although there is construction going on right now, the teachers are wanting a little bit more help in their classrooms, specifically with their ceiling tiles. They have brought it to my attention that a lot of their classrooms do not have ceiling tiles, and they would appreciate if this was resolved. I will try to set up a meeting with the new head custodian regarding this issue soon. On another note, the students are more satisfied than anything at the moment. They feel like the school has a better and more in common environment this year. One thing they specifically mentioned was that the staff provide them with great reassurance. Moving on to the follow-ups, at last month's meeting, I discussed the placement and variety of the breakfast carts. I recently contacted the students who brought the concern to my attention, and they stated they have seen better placement. They also said the problem was fixed soon after I talked about it. I also talked about how the student council was in the process of planning a parent support night. We are currently looking at October during parent-teacher conferences for hosting this event. Hosting this event during parent-teacher conferences will help with the turnout. Once those dates are finalized, we will send out that information. And this week is Pink Week in the Warrior Nation, so we will be starting Pink Week off with a volleyball game Thursday, which is tomorrow, against Ben Davis. Friday will be our football game against Pike. And seeing as it is Pink Week, the Student Council is hosting a fundraiser. We are giving students the chance to put $1 in a bucket to vote for a staff member of their choice. In return, they get a bracelet for every $1 they spend, and we will smash a pink pie in the face of the top two staff members. I will be in the back with bracelets if any of you would like a chance to donate for breast cancer awareness at the end of this meeting. Thank you and have a good night.
Brendan Edwards give his report, but we're going to have Dr. Hanson take care of that report for us.
Brennan sends his regrets. He had a conflict with this evening, so he was not able to come. I'm going to share his activities that involve food. September 24th is the last Soul Food Sunday of 2023 at Cafe at 4 p.m. So check that out if you'd like to check that out. September 26th, which is next Tuesday, is the Far East Side Community Council meeting. It is also Taco Tuesday at P30, and I believe the tacos are free. September 30th is the Cafe Hispanic Heritage Festival at Cafe from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Also that afternoon is the Far East Side Kickball Tournament. And also on that evening is the last Cumberland Blues beer or root beer barbecue of 2023, and the theme this year is Rock Timber. If Brennan was here, he would encourage you to check out the Mayor City's action line and reach out to him if you have any questions or would like more information. Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Brendan. Board correspondence? Any?
We do not have any.
Okay, good to know. Any green cards?
No, we don't have any of those either.
Okay. Next item on the agenda would be our consent agenda. Let me run through those. Approval of minutes, financial report, payroll claim, financial report, claim register, and electronic payments. Financial report, year-to-date summary of fund balances, human resource report, the field trips, permission to accept gifts and grants, change orders, okay, use of school property, and that's pretty much it. Could I get someone to move to accept the consent agenda?
I'll make the movement.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor say, well, let the electronics take care of it. If it comes up. Aha. Look like the ayes have it. Consent agenda approved. Next on the agenda is our reports. Our first report is DLI and ML update. Kim Park.
All right, good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm excited to share an update regarding our dual language and multilingual learner program. To get us started, this supports the board goals for student achievement and really trying to support our students with providing them with a variety of learning experiences and opportunities. It also supports the district's strategic plan as we look at meeting the needs of the whole child, as well as looking at, providing for their opportunities as future graduates, and really trying to meet all of those expectations for our students. To get us started, I want to talk about our dual language program first. This gives you an overview of our student numbers for our dual language program. Right now, we are in 1st through 7th grade. Originally, we have been a K-6 program last year. This year would have been a K-7 program. Unfortunately, due to challenges with staffing, we were unable to provide for our program for kindergarten, specifically trying to find a teacher that would be able to teach Spanish. So that was definitely a challenge that not just our program had, but several programs across the state of Indiana were having that same challenge. But overall, we're still excited about this program and the opportunity we're having for these students. Again, it's great to see finally that we have students from 1st grade all the way up through 7th grade, with our population right now being at 268 students. As we look at the population a little bit more, these programs are at Pleasant Run Elementary and Stony Brook. And right now, this kind of shows you the breakdown of those students, specifically for those students that are part of our multilingual learner program and those students that are native English speakers. So you can see that the majority of our students are our multilingual learner students, and Spanish is their native language. We do also happen to have a few other students that have a Haitian Creole background or even Portuguese that are also part of the program. So they're not just learning, 2 languages, this is their 3rd language, which is pretty exciting. But overall, we're still excited with our numbers that we have. To give you a real highlight for this year for our program, it was really exciting last year at the end of the school year in 22-23. We were able to offer a great opportunity for our 6th grade students. We partnered with the department of the World Language Department at our high school, and we were able to administer the high school Spanish 1, semester 1 and 2 assessment for our 6th grade students. And of those students that took the test, 21 of them passed both assessments, and they were able to earn 2 high school world language credits at the end of 6th grade. So I'm gonna just stop there. Super exciting about that, because how many 6th grade students can say they've already started earning high school credits? Not many. So that was a huge exciting piece for our program. Of those students that did pass those 2 assessments, as 7th graders now, they're taking Spanish 2. The ones that didn't pass, unfortunately, maybe they passed one assessment and not the other, but they are enrolled in Spanish 1. So we're still continuing that language development with those students. I do want to highlight the World Language Credit opportunity for these students, because it does support the Certificate of Multilingual Proficiency. This is a certificate that really any high school graduate can receive as long as they meet these qualifications. That's earning 6 or 8 credits of English language arts. It's passing the English graduation assessment or the WIDA access assessment for our multilingual learner students. It's earning those 6 credits of a single world language, or if they're a multilingual learner student or an English learner student, as the IDOE still uses that term, they can also pass an assessment to show proficiency in their language. And then finally, it's passing an approved assessment. So this really is like our big goal with our dual language program. It's getting students to be able to earn this certificate of multilingual proficiency. But as I said, it's a great opportunity for even students that maybe aren't a part of our program, but if we have a growing population of multilingual learners, this is a great opportunity for them as well to earn this for their diploma, to show that they are bilingual and biliterate, and that they have those opportunities that they can utilize either in college or even in the workforce. I'm going to take a pause right there and see if you have any questions regarding our dual language program before I move on to talk a little bit about our multilingual learner program.
You said you did not have a kindergarten teacher. Is that what you're saying?
Correct, yeah. So right now, the way we have our program set up in kindergarten through 4th grade, we have a 2-teacher model. So we have a teacher that teaches in English, teaches the content in English, and a teacher that teaches the content in Spanish. And we were not able to get a teacher that was able to teach the content in Spanish this year. Yeah, there was a lot of changes with, mainly we try to partner with the IDOE, who works with the Embassy of Spain. And so we try to hire some teachers from Spain. And there were some new circumstances that happened in Spain that changed a lot of choices for teachers in Spain as far as like what their opportunities were for teaching in Spain. And so a lot of them decided to pull out of the partnership that they had and stay in Spain. So that was unfortunate for us. And we interviewed several people, but it was very challenging to get staff. Okay. All right, well, moving on to our multilingual learner program. This gives you an overview of our students in kindergarten through 12th grade, shows you the number of students that we have in our program. So right now, we're just over 1,900, and I can already tell you by the time I made this PowerPoint, this number has grown. We're probably almost closer to 2,000 students now, just within the little bit of time that we have prepared this. And currently, last year at this time, we were around 1,700. So that just really gives you an overview of the growth. This chart does show you kind of what that growth looks like from 2019 to present. So you can see we've had a steady increase of students coming to Warren Township to be a part of our schools. And it's just exciting. I love being able to have these students in our buildings. I feel like it brings a lot of great cultural and diversity to our programs, and I just love it. What's really great with our growth too this year is that we were able to add in some staff members. We were able to open up 5 or 6 new positions this year. We went from 23 teachers to 28 teachers, but probably my favorite piece was that we were able to open up a position at the high school for a multilingual learner department chair. And the high school has probably almost 500 students, and that was a huge need. We needed somebody there to help with our students enrolling, getting kids registered, getting kids screened, evaluating their transcripts from out of the country, making sure they had the right pathway for their classes. And so that's been a huge lift, I think, for the high school to be able to have somebody on staff to be able to support that. So that's been a real exciting piece that we've had this year to our program. I always like to give our top 5. This shows you the top 5 countries of birth as well as the languages in the district. So currently we have students from over 38 countries. United States, majority of our students are born in the United States. Second, though, is Haiti. Haiti, we have a lot of growing Haitian Creole population of students that continues to grow every year. Honduras, Mexico, and Guatemala. As well as Spanish is our main language. We have over 1,000 some students in the district that speak Spanish, followed up by Haitian Creole, French, Tagalog, and Vietnamese. This shows you kind of the breakdown of our WIDA Access Assessment. So this is an assessment that we give annually that shows kind of the English language proficiency for our students. The test gives a score from a 1.0 to a 6.0. So students that are a 1.0 to a 4.9 receive services, and students that are a 5.0 to a 6.0 are considered fluent English speakers. So you can see the number of students we tested, even from 2022 to 2023. We tested a lot more students this past year. But you can see majority of our students are kind of in that level 1 to level 3 range. But all of these students are students that receive services in their classroom. We provide push-in services, so we're pushing into the classroom to support students with content learning and supporting them as they need with vocabulary, reading, writing, whatever supports that they're in need of. I'm excited to be here during our Hispanic Heritage Month. This is a great opportunity for the state of Indiana and just America in general to celebrate families and to celebrate ancestry from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, the Central and South America. Already, Warren Township is doing an amazing job at celebrating families and students. I love these pictures of students bringing in their flags to just show the representation of where they're coming from. But a lot of schools are doing door decorating contests. They're learning about different facts. They're highlighting famous Latinos. They're also reading a lot of books from different Latinos. And really, we've been promoting a lot of different community events as well. I think Indiana does a great job of having so many different awesome opportunities and events around the city for families to engage in. I know already like Pleasant Run is having a cultural night tomorrow night. So it's just awesome to see all of those great opportunities. When we think about community partnerships, I love highlighting the Indiana Latino Institute. We've been in partnership with Indiana Latino Institute for several years. It's a great organization that really promotes just education, advocacy, I can't, sorry, I'm struggling with that word, advocacy and cultural leadership for our students with just really trying to push them into becoming more, really preparing them for college, preparing them for the workforce, and really trying to elevate them. We had a great opportunity I think on September 12th, for our high school to go and participate in their annual education summit and college and career fair. This is an opportunity that they have annually for Indiana Latino high school students to come and learn about college access, how to have success in college, and even just prepare for work. They were able to have the keynote speaker, Rafael Sanchez from WRTV. He was there to be the speaker for them. But what was great is the high school took 104 students, and they were fired up. They loved going. They loved hearing about all the different opportunities. But I think, too, they just enjoyed going together. I know already my department chair there was like, well, next year I'm going to take 160. Like, she's already set a goal for we're going to take more students. But what was really fun was getting some quotes from some of the kids and just what they enjoyed about that event. Here's one from Angel. I liked going to the colleges and getting to know them. I liked the motivational speaker. He was relatable. That's from Brandon. From Miguel, it was fun, interesting, and peaceful, talking with friends about college. And then this one's probably my favorite. It was nice. I liked the freebies, which who doesn't, and did find a choice college. Evansville does have a choice for nursing, and most colleges had abroad programs, something I would like to do. And that's from Juliana. So I loved that, just being able to give these students an opportunity to just see something new and different and maybe learn about some different opportunities that maybe they didn't know were out there. So it's a really great partnership. I love that we have that partnership with them, and I know that that's something that we're going to continue to provide for our students, those opportunities. And so again, I'm really excited about all the work that we're doing for our dual language program, for our multilingual learner program. So just a lot of great things that are happening. So I appreciate your time, and I'll take any other questions that you might have for me.
Just wanted to say great job. Thank you for exposing our youth to other things, broadening their horizons, and showing them what is available. As we always say, when you set the bar high, they'll reach high. So thank you.
Thank you.
And your staff.
Thanks.
I just want to say I feel it's an excellent program, and I like your high goals and expectations, and that is evident in even taking them around to different colleges and letting them know that, they have great expectations waiting for them, and, allowing them to see the opportunity that exists. So thank you for a job well done.
Thank you.
It has been a pleasure to watch your program grow. I think one of the first years you started with the kindergarten, and I was on the board, and just to see how much we have put into this program and given back to our students and their families, it's just amazing to see that it's 7th grade and growing. Mm-hmm. So thank you for everything that you and your department do.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kim, this was great. I tell you that. I tell you what, I also am glad to see, but I think it's still kind of early, and that is we haven't had any celebrators out jamming up the streets like we experienced in Chicago. So I guess there's still time.
Right, hopefully. Maybe this weekend. Great.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you.
Turn this thing back on. Our next report is on colleges and career readiness update from Doug Harder.
Well, good evening, President Dorsey and Superintendent Hanson and members of the board. I'm excited to come to share with you about an activity that is worked around our Journey of a Graduate work, and as we continue to be intentional to build a college career readiness framework. My slides have already advanced, so let me go back to the beginning. Okay, so we had the opportunity to participate. We about 12 of us from our team were able to participate in a K-8 study conference that was sponsored through the CISC, as well as Ford Next Generation Learning. As you are well aware, we've partnered with Ford NGL, again, as a part of our work with the Journey of a Graduate as we continue to build our college career readiness framework. And so they offered this K-8 study conference. This is just one of several professional development opportunities that we've participated in or will participate in. What we were really excited about on this one was because this really gave our elementary and middle school folks really the first opportunity to kind of really dive into this work and really consider how does this impact what they do at the elementary and middle school level. as you recall, we really focused our efforts last year on the high school and the Career Center, at least getting started there. And so this was really our first opportunity to kind of involve the elementary, middle school folks. And so the primary purpose of this two-day conference that was held at the end of August was to, how do we embed and assess the journey of a graduate skills in our K-8 curriculum, as well as then incorporate guaranteed experiences that enhance that curriculum. One of the things that I'm sure you have heard has been one of the challenges with the journey of a graduate when it was agreed upon and finalized a few years ago, and then partly, again, was interrupted by the pandemic, was the inability to really define it at the elementary, middle school level, and how do we then embed it into our everyday practice. And so this is part of what we were able to start the conversation around, is how do we go about doing that and making it real at that level. And then secondly, how do we align both horizontally across our schools and grade levels, as well as then align this vertically, the knowledge, the skills, the attributes, the experiences that are taught and provided in grades K-8, in order that we can then build that intentional K-12 college career readiness framework. So that's kind of the purpose of this conference. So what we started to do in our group was really having these conversations. And so I just kind of listed a few of the things that we were asked to consider and that we had discussions around. And so we talked about things like, what do we already have in alignment? What business partners do we already have? So for example, at the elementary level, oftentimes their business partners are maybe faith-based and things like that. And so those can be great in their own way, but just kind of identifying some of those and then asking that question, how can we strategically work with some partners that perhaps can connect an elementary experience to then a middle school experience, and then connect that to the high school. And so those are some of the things, again, that we were talking about. And then we talked about then what are those gaps? So once we kind of identified some of those things that we were already doing, then it was, where are there some gaps that we don't have anything really in place, and what could we start to do to address that? And the main focus was identifying those natural connections. And so, for example, just to give you one example that we talked about, if we look at like the standards or a particular subject matter, it's like if we look at science, we look at kindergarten through second grade, their focus is on life sciences, so on plants and animals. And so some of our elementary schools already go to like the apple orchard, but perhaps not all of them go. And then how do we do that? How do we create something around what we're already doing in the classroom, the curriculum, and create experiences that all students can benefit from? And so perhaps then again, then looking out, again, kind of asset mapping what we already have available, such as taking advantage of what's offered at the zoo that, again, relates to the content standards, and then how do we embed those journey of a graduate skills? So how do we teach students critical thinking, for example, in those types of lessons? How do we build collaboration? And so really starting that work at the granular level of how do we bring to life the journey of a graduate. And so that's, again, kind of what we were working on. One thing that was a really cool thing that the entire group, so this was a conference that was attended by not just us, of course, but it was the other 6 districts that participate in the 3E grant, that received the grant, and so they brought teams themselves. So it was a conference for the 7 school districts. And so this was a presentation by one of the Ford NGL coaches, actually our coach, and it was about generations. And so it was really interesting to start to think through, especially when we get to Gen Alpha, which is the newest generation, in terms of like learning styles and how do they respond to things. And because we oftentimes think about how we were taught or how we best learn, if I'm taking from the instruction perspective, but we have to have the mindset of how do students in today's classrooms learn? What is best for them? And so really starting to kind of think through some of that. But then also, I think what was also a great takeaway is for our, say, our elementary principals, middle school principals who were there to really start to think about the teachers that they are hiring and who work under them, to think about how do they respond to leadership styles. Because again, you can see here, you know, the different generations, they respond to leadership styles differently. So then that, you know, has implications to how you lead a building when you have younger teachers that you're hiring and things like that. So I think it was really instructive for both, you know, from a principal's perspective in terms of how they lead their buildings, but then also implications for how do we go about teaching the newest generation who are in our classrooms. So that was really exciting learning for all of us. So what were our primary takeaways from this conference? So the first one I wanted to highlight is that, and it really kind of stresses what a lot of our elementary and middle school folks feel about this, is it went from how can we make this, meaning the journey of a graduate, meaningful and applicable to K-4, to then by the end of the conference, I can see now where the K-4 fits into this work. And so that was great. We're making progress, and that's the kind of progress that we need to make, especially as we start to scale this and move forward. A couple other things that our group felt like were takeaways. This work will not be done overnight. We're not looking to make transformations immediately. This work will take much longer than that. I know I'm always reminded that, for example, at Akron Public Schools, it took them 7 years from the time the superintendent started to have some conversations with Ford Next Generation Learning to the point where their high schools had completely transformed. Now, it may not take us 7 years, but that's just an example. It does take time to do this. Third is understanding the importance and the possibilities of that K-12 vertical alignment that we had just started to have conversations around. And then the necessity of consistent communication. You know, we're a large district, and when you are undergoing this kind of work, it takes a lot of communication. And so that was emphasized to us. What are our next steps after the conference? And so there was a couple things I'd like to highlight. Again, this conference was at the end of August. We had the opportunity to share this with our district leadership team at the August 31st meeting, where those principals and the instructional coaches who participated were able to share out then with the large group, and then also kind of have replicated some of those same conversations that were had at the conference. And so to really then kind of build capacity with our leadership team of what was learned. And so that was well received. And then this coming up on October 3rd in Vision Day, because of what we learned at the K-8 conference, we have built in intentionally a couple of activities around some of the things that we learned at the conference because we feel that it was that important. So for example, we are going to have a little bit more discussion around that generational activity because again, if we're building a vision for the future, we have to have some knowledge of how do the current students learn best. We can't teach them the way we were taught. We've got to teach them how they learn best. And so having that kind of conversation and then defining and implementing the Journey of a Graduate activity will, again, embed us into that same conversation of how do we take those skills, how do we embed that into our everyday practice in the classroom, and how do we, again, make this come to life. And so those are our next steps from what we learned at that K-8 conference. At this time, I open up to any kind of questions that you have for me.
I just want to say I'm glad you're taking in-depth look at what we can do to meet the needs of the students. You know, like you said, what can we do to enhance their learning? You know, we might have to do things differently, but at least we're taking a look at it, and hopefully that will give us some ideas on what we can do to improve learning. So that's great.
Yep.
I got a question. Maybe we'll find out on October the 3rd when they have we have the Envision Day. But generational activity, I don't know. When I say generational, I look at long time, a long piece of period of time. You know, strategic planning, 20 years, that kind of thing. Generations, we're talking what? 12 years, 15 years. That would be considered a generation, right or wrong? What do you think? What would be considered a generation, one generation to the next?
15 to 20.
15, 20 years. Okay, so we're going 15 to 20 years, and you have to provide a generational activity. Again, I guess I'll see this and it'll become clearer to me. But when I think about that, I'm thinking about who am I looking around right now that's going to be able to make that thing roll and then be able to see the fruits of all of that. And if you're talking about 15 years, I look around, you know, I don't know. I'm hoping I can start something now that'll last that long so that it's really meets my goal or my objective or how I feel in 15 years. But you know how some of these things come and go. You know, all these different processes, what we were talking about earlier today at the lunch, 8-step process, and how long did that last, you know? And then we have the new thing that came after that, and then something else that came after that. So I'm just curious about, you know, what is generational activity? I guess that's what I'm trying to define, and I'm trying to define it in my own self. You guys probably already smart enough to know that, but I don't know if we could wait that long. We need to see some action like now, you know what I mean? And if I got to wait till 15 years, well, my knees are all right.
Well, and so that is exactly what we're trying to do. It's not something that we're going to wait to do in 15 years. It's learning the characteristics. So for example, I'll just take generation Alpha. So that's the newest generation, is learning what are their characteristics and how are they wired, so that those are the students who are currently, you know, in kindergarten, first grade. And so that changes how we do instruction. And so we need to learn about those things and those characteristics so then we can modify our approach to them so that they can be more successful. So that's kind of being what we mean by the generational activity.
But I'm not. Here's what we use kindergarten, for example. We did the multi-language thing earlier, you know, and we can't even find teachers for the kindergarten kids. You know, what does this look like for that kid that we finally get a teacher for a kid who in the kindergarten didn't have a teacher or support? Oh, okay, I thought maybe I said something that was going to embarrass me. But you see what I'm getting at? I'm thinking about that. You couldn't find a person for the kindergarten kids. Kindergarten kids are being shortchanged until they get in, what, 3rd grade? And then we start seeing these teachers, these people, you know, helping. Well, how did that student get shortchanged in this generational activity? Maybe not at all, but that's just how I'm wired. I'm looking at that. I'm saying that kid's going to be, we're going to have to really work on all those kindergarten kids that didn't have, all those 3rd graders that didn't have a teacher in kindergarten for multi-language, for example. Just I only use an example because you brought that up, Ms. Parks, and then he brought it up, and now then you got me thinking. So that generational activity, I'm really interested in seeing how you define that and what that really means. If it's long term, I don't know, man. I might go to sleep on that, you know. But if it's like in another 5 years, we may see something happening. Yeah, I'm interested. You know what I mean? I'm interested in the results. I'm interested in how we were able to succeed. 15 years.
Doug, can you just go back to the graph that shows the generations?
We're talking about two different things.
Rachel, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, so he's talking about how to relate to people depending on when they were born, not kind of setting a goal that's 15 years out. So the generational activity is like, so my sister and I are 2 different generations. I'm Gen X, she's Gen Y, my kids are Gen Z. What's terrifying is Gen Alpha's in 7th grade, not 2nd grade, which is mind-blowing. But so he's just talking about like leadership, communication styles, teaching styles. Are you talking about like things like flipped classroom and directed activity versus small groups versus just lecturing, things like that? He's not talking about like envisioning out 15 years by a generational activity. He's talking about how to relate kind of one-on-one or as a group or as a leader or as a teacher or even just one-on-one with people of different generations whose mind work in inherently different ways.
And what you're saying, I just see that being a long-term kind of a process as you move forward.
Well, that's a process that every generation, I mean, that's just something that just is continual. How we teach kids 5 years from now isn't how we taught them 5 years ago and will always be true. I just think that this is an activity that will help us. I mean, I know when I originally came on the board, back in my day, discussing non-lecturing classroom styles, that is how I learn well, was very, very mind-blowing to me. 9 years later, I get it. That is not how kids learn, having spent time in classrooms with kids. That's just really not going to fly, and that's not how. And I think it's more that thing. How are we making sure that our teachers are effectively teaching our students as technology has really rewired brains and how that is going on?
Yes. Thank you, Rachel. That was fantastic. Much more articulate than I was. So again, and just in closing, again, we are really excited about the Envision Day. We are, as Dr. Hansen mentioned, we are targeting about 175 people. We're hoping, perhaps to get up to 200. So far, we've invited over 140 community partners. That's not including who we're inviting in terms of school board members, parents, staff. This is just community partners. And so over 140 invitations have gone out. We are close to 50 commitments of individuals that are going to participate because we, again, truly believe we have to have a community connected approach, and having those community partners with us on that day is going to be powerful. And so we're really excited about that.
Good presentation. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Next up is our safety update. Mr. Clayton and Chief.
Second one. Okay. All right. A little teamwork. Appreciate it. President Dorsey, Dr. Hansen, members of the board, and to our Warren families, this month we wanted to provide a safety update, and I really appreciate just all the dialogue this evening, just around teaching and learning and just understanding that the role that operations plays in the teach and learning process. You heard Kaveh talk about something simple as ceiling tiles, okay? Things like that can serve as a distraction. And working with our building leaders, receiving feedback from our student body, it's important that just the role that we play, whether it's bringing students safely to and from school every morning, to the environment that they enter at every building, to make sure that it's clean, that it's conducive to learning. And I would say obviously we have to feed them too, right? But one of our biggest obligations is to provide safety. And that's something that we all take serious. I really appreciate the conversations we've had over the past couple of months around safety. I appreciate the opportunities we've had to engage our parents in on the discussion as well. So one of the things that we've been able to start back up post-COVID is our district and our school-based safety committees to make sure that we're having these conversations at the building level as well as the district level. So before we get into that, I just want to connect safety to our board goals as it relates to invest in the physical and psychological safety, security, and well-being of all students and staff, as well as how it connects to our strategic plan focus in the area of investing in relationships with families and community and investing in efficiencies in the environment. So I want to go back to last spring when we were having discussion around the referendum. And when we had the opportunity, all of us had the opportunity to go in front of the community and just talk about those investments that we wanted to continue to make moving forward. And we talked a lot about safety, specifically how we wanted to continue to support, invest in our statutory police department that we've almost had in place for 10 years now, our Warren Police Department, as well as our school resource officers, our school safety officers, as well as our chief. So some of the things that we discussed and what we were able to do in fiscal year 23, as a district, we invested a little bit over $1.5 million on security personnel and supplies, an additional $168,000 on vehicles, metal detectors, and cameras. We talk a lot about grants. That's an essential part, and I'm sure Mr. Parkinson will tell you that as far as our ability to provide the ultimate safety measures for our students and staff, being able to apply for those grants and secure some of those have gone a long way. That secure safety grant, 100K matching, we were able to get that grant, and we used it for cameras, and then we plan on using that for compensation moving forward in the next year, and talk a little bit about that later on. Then we also were able to secure the COPS grant, which is a 25% matching grant. We were awarded a total of $423,477, and we use that for fences to help secure our playgrounds at our elementaries, as well as additional communication devices such as radios, security alarms, and the rekeying project that we're doing at the high school. I mentioned earlier, last year we engaged our community. I would love the opportunity to continue to do that around safety. We had 83 attendees in those two forums last school year, 12 presenters, and in both cases we had those, what I thought were very powerful student and parent panel discussions. From that discussion through the referendum process, we put together some action items. It was important, and just from the feedback we received from the board as well as just our community, we want to make sure that we could go back in front of our community and show them some of the things that we've been working on. And some of this work started as early as last spring. But the good work of Warren Police, what they do around our buildings with the safety checks. I know that we have, we mentioned our SSO Roars here tonight, but also William Morris. William, if you could put your hand up. Thank you for being here tonight. But the great work that our Warren police officers, resource officers continue to do around safety checks, bus scans. Also, it's important to note that a safety feature are the new entryways that have been installed or in the process of almost being complete. At the high school, you guys had the opportunity to see that during your visit, as well at door 1, as well as door 70 at the Career Center, Lowell, Grassy Creek, Pleasant Run, Early Childhood Center, which that is just about complete. That entire project will be complete here over fall break, as well as Sunny Heights. We're looking at a finish date about November 1st for Sunny Heights. But those were all added safety measures just at the entry points. That was essential, and I appreciate Dr. Hanson's leadership on that, because that was a priority that we made sure that we got those things done. We've had conversations around concealed weapons detections, and that's something I know that we want to be a part of our future here. We utilize interdiction dogs, our lockdown drills, and really just all of our procedures through Raptor, our school safety framework, which I'll touch on here. We did a vape detector pilot, if you recall, at the high school, and some of the work they've done inside with their staff safety huddles, as well as their campaigns that they've done. And again, just you heard what Kaveh had to say. It just this year feels different, and a lot has to do with just the conversations that they've had within that building. And that's not just at the high school, but all of our schools. This is something that's part of what we do. Some of the things that we continue to move forward on, Stop the Bleed, already mentioned the COPS grant, and some of the other security features. Last year, we talked a lot about our framework, and that work with our framework will continue. And as we have our safety discussions, we want to frame those discussions around this framework. And that framework consists of physical safety, school climate, and student behavior. And really, the principles behind that framework, really a couple of areas where really it's about prevention. So again, if you think about some of the measures and the conversations we've had about, for example, just the concealed weapons detection, that's more in the area of prevention. All right, I know many of us had conversation this past weekend. We've had some things happen at other Marion County schools around one of their events. And part of that discussion that not only have we had at this building, but also at the high school is how can we continue to ensure that when our students come to extracurricular activities, that their only concern is being a student, having fun, and making memories. We don't want them worried about whether someone's going to bring something in there that they shouldn't. But we have to extend that conversation to the parking lots. We have challenges with that. We understand this is an open carry state now, and it is more likely that adults or others will have a weapon on them. So what type of adjustments do we make as it relates to events that we host here at school? What type of safety adjustments do we need to make? And just so you know, those conversations are taking place as we go, and we want to be the leader in that area to make sure that, again, our students focus on just making memories and enjoying their experience here with us. All of these principles are grounded in our strategic plan and our board goals. The second one is response. And then the third one is engaging stakeholders, which again, we did that this past year. I want to touch real quick just on our district safety committee. School Board Policy 8400 speaks specifically to our school safety committees, and each school is required to implement a school safety committee. The district framework for our school safety initiative will consist of the three areas that I mentioned: physical safety, school climate, and student behavior. And this team is encouraged to meet on a monthly basis. Part of the requirement also consists of a drug-free committee. So the guidance that we provided our building leaders is to really combine these two committees. So when they meet on a monthly basis, not only will they have discussions around safety, but they will also have discussion around drugs, and I would say a drug-free environment. Chief Ganan and myself were taking a supportive role as it relates to how can we provide, for example, elementaries, because that's just a little bit different environment. What type of materials can we provide them as they have this discussion around creating that drug-free atmosphere? I know Chief can speak a little bit to that. Matter of fact, Chief, if you want to talk about just some of the things that we have in store.
President Dorsey, Dr. Hanson, board members, thank you again for having me here and my first board meeting, so exciting stuff for me. So we wanted to take each meeting and provide some kind of framework for each one. So in September, when we met just a few days ago, we talked about the technology that we have on hand already through the Raptor technologies. There's a lot of training modules inside that. So those are things that we've asked them to go look through and kind of lean on some of those things as it relates to how we're going to start pushing some different educational pieces out and then down into the buildings. excuse me. The November meeting, we're going to look at crime prevention through environmental design. I'll be able to lead that a little bit. That's one of the certificates I hold, is that crime prevention piece. So that's something that I can hopefully weigh in on, and we look at the buildings kind of as a holistic, from everything from the perimeter all the way into the door hardware to lighting. All those different things play into that. January, we're going to focus on the school climate and relationships inside the school. And then March, we'll focus more on mental health. There's a lot of really interesting data and educational pieces out there about suicidal ideation and some of the bullying things that have come to light, and some studies that are going on. So we'll be focusing on some of that. We'll probably have even more data by that point, because those are ongoing studies that I've looked up. And then in May, we'll kind of cover threat assessments and then year-end review. So kind of taking the year as a whole and looking at like what we saw over the course of our school year and what improvements we think we can make and how to push those things out. Specifically, when we were talking about the drug-free and discussing those kind of things, I've got some educational pieces that we've built at other school districts that I was at that I'm going to be pushing down to the staff so that they can use some of that material to engage the kids. Probably at the 4th, 5th grade level, maybe 6th grade, depending on, the material and how much time they can give us to get in front of the kids and have those conversations, and then they can utilize some of that training material as well. So hopefully that will push us in the right direction as far as those things go. So the Raptor technology, the Raptor technology, like I say, already exists. It has a best practices piece in it. So as we look at the safety committees, it specifically speaks to the safety committees, and not only just how they're formed, which we already have those things in place, but also the short videos and discussion points about things that we're seeing more and more, and that really is nationwide. But then we can pare that down to the things that we're seeing right here in our own backyard, and the things that we think we need to attack as far as what are we seeing or what has maybe been on an uptick, and then how do we then focus on that and hopefully nip some of that behavior in the bud. So they range from everything to how to conduct drills the best way, to the suicidal ideation, to the threat assessment. So it's all kind of paired together in there, and we'll be able to share that, and they'll be able to share that at the building level. But what would be nice is that we'll be able to have some consistency throughout as we go through and we talk about these things. It won't kind of be this building is doing one thing and the other building hasn't got that information. The information is going to be kind of universal, so that we'll be able to make sure that everybody is getting the information the right way, and hopefully sharing with one another what their experiences are and what's worked really well for them in those lesson plans.
From a district safety committee perspective, some of the things that we shared at our first meeting the other day, just some of the additional discussion topics: improved student behavior, physical safety of students and staff, school climate, which we kind of mentioned, our emergency preparedness plans, being able to give a detailed analysis of exactly what that looks like at each building and the execution of that. Our core student success handbook. Chief Ganan mentioned Raptor, our visitor management, our standard response protocol, which I know Chief Ganan is working hard on, supervision and monitoring, communication, staff training opportunities, the review of school safety policy and procedures, improvement of monthly and annual drills, and address safety and security maintenance needs, and establish annual safety and security goals. Some of the other activities, and this is where this is really new for us, we're going to do role play scenarios at our district safety team meetings. We'll conduct role play scenarios to help staff understand how to handle various safety situations, with the expectation that they go back to the building level with their school-based committees and execute that same type of role play scenario, as well as workshops. We've been able to do facility walkthroughs with our building leaders. We're going to do safety walkthroughs to identify areas. We just meeting with the high school today. They identified some areas at the stadium that we need to have a little bit more lighting. So things of that nature, as well as just feedback sessions, and again, just talk specifically about drills. So those are some of the things we're going to do from a district safety committee perspective. Any questions at this time?
Safety, how are you going to do that? I mean, right, what I immediately start to think is that you, let me back up, sorry. Do you have a standalone drug program? And who's in charge of that?
Do we have a standalone drug program? So from a committee standpoint, our policy requires that we have committees for both. So what we try to do is provide the building leaders the leeway to combine those committees, and their discussion topics and strategies will not only cover, you know, safety issues, but as we know that oftentimes, let's just say some of the issues surrounding drugs or students potentially bringing drugs on campuses, oftentimes that becomes a safety issue as well, with just some of the downfall or the fallout from that.
You may have just answered it, but what's the advantage in bringing those, combining that like that? Why not? It seemed like the strength would be in having a committee that's really focused primarily on drugs and that sort of thing.
So again, it's just an option that we've provided for our building leaders. If they feel like they want to have a standalone, separate, drug-free committee, they have the ability to do so. Just according to our policy, we have to do both. We have to have conversations, discussions around both. So we want to provide them with the leeway to combine those two and have discussion around that. And most importantly, from a district perspective, we will be in a position to provide support and provide them with lessons, whether it's at the elementary level or just general topics or focus areas at the middle and high school level.
What about the funding? I mean, if you're going to have these programs, that there's funding in each one of these programs. Are you going to combine those fundings and be able to reduce the amount of monies that's spent, or are we going to have two separate funds or budget for those, even though you're combining those? I'm just saying there's an expense there that I'm not excited about.
So fortunately, there's no expense right now, because they're just, there's no expense for, I am too. Right, but there's no expense right now. Again, it's just a standard committee. Think, President Dorsey, think of like your school improvement committee, and just the discussions that they have. This would be something similar, but this is going to be more around safety.
Our policy on drug-free committees talks to, you know, each school, like you said, supposed to do that. And these committee meetings meet monthly. Maybe you don't know, maybe you do know. Who's involved in that?
That's a good question. So the guidance that I provided to all the building leaders, obviously our building leaders play a key role in that. They provide us with a list of the committee members that they've selected. The guidance that we give, typically you're going to have administrators, you're going to have teachers. They have the ability to involve community members within their school, their a parent just from a student in their school. They have the ability to involve someone from operations if they have a custodian or someone that plays a key role just in safety. Those are the type of individuals that we've recommended that they involve.
Are you involving anyone external to the district or anyone like a consultant on drug?
Yeah, that's a great question. So from a district committee level, we will have meetings where we'll bring someone in from the outside to talk specifically to a topic of concern. I know just conversations that Chief Ganan and I have had, we want to bring in some of the best and brightest to help, support our efforts. And we encourage at the building level for our safe committees to do the same thing.
Okay. Now, one other question, and it's in reference to, we were moving pretty fast on these focus committees, safety focus committees.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, I'm not hearing anything about that. Is that part of this, or is there?
Let's do it.
A separate
we got a separate arrangement for a community safety?
No, let's do it. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, I look forward to the opportunity to continue to engage the community around this safety discussion, because ultimately we know that parents play a critical role in this, and really that's why we're at where we're at today, because of the feedback we received during those 2 opportunities we had last spring. And if you recall, their number 1 concern was to prevent weapons from entering our schools.
I do recall those committees. I was just looking here with this here, January, March, May, November, September. I didn't see anything in it that talked about community focus or community involvement.
Yeah, those were more, that was more the focus for the school-based committees.
I figured that's where you were going. Okay, good. All right. Just something to think about, because I believe in this safety thing. I think it's a big deal. We've thrown a lot of money at it. We got some, referendum money out there that's going to be thrown at this thing, and we got issues.
Yeah.
And, we want to make sure we're in a better position, or in a good position.
Yes, sir.
To be able to do this. So I'm hearing you talk about that, and it sounds good, but I don't hear anything about community. So
I think it's important that we pick up with the meetings that we started. Our parents appreciated that. The communities appreciated. We only had 1 at Creston, and it just so happened after an incident. We need to keep that momentum going and keep our families and community involved with what's going on in the safety of our buildings. So if that means we do quarterly meetings, I mean, we've got to make sure our community and our parents and everybody feels safe and involved and listened to and heard.
Absolutely. And I think in addition to that, we need to show them exactly the work we've been doing, and the changes that we've made and the changes that we propose moving forward, because that's what we told them we would do.
And that is good from a strength-based perspective, highlighting some of the things that feedback and showing. But I think as we get this out to the families, because if they don't know this, they're just thinking, oh, well, we're having these frivolous meetings and nothing has come out of it. But another thing that was really a hot topic was ensuring that our schools had enough security and safety officers. I didn't hear anything about that. Well, how are we working to promote or ensure that we also have more of our security at the schools as we're increasing our detectors and all of that?
Yeah, that's, staffing is huge, especially with some of the, proposals that we've brought in front of the board. I know that's something with the working hard with Matt Parkinson and Brian Simpkins in HR, Dr. Hanson, Ryan Russell was involved with some of our discussions, as well as Chief Ganan. One of the things that we are working hard on is not only filling the positions that we currently have open, but also finding creative ways to add more positions as well, whether it's from a student safety officer, an SSO perspective, or an SRO. What I would share with you, Ms. Triplett, is that that's going to happen sooner than later. And I think part of that retention strategy is something that we'll cover during the action items of how we're going to exactly go about doing that, taking a huge first step in making sure that we can retain and recruit the type of people that we need here to serve and protect our community.
I appreciate that. And as we wrap it up, I know it's getting late, but that'll be huge, because the referendum, we pushed safety, 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 investing, retaining safety. And we don't want to lose the trust in the community, because we're, some things I know we have to slow walk because it's just procedures that we have to go through. But the things that we can at that instant, gratification, or put it in front of our community, that yes, because the referendum was hard to pass, So we want to make sure that we are living up to that, and everything we said we were investing in. Absolutely. It is visible. And I just don't see the big visibility yet. We see it in this. I think how do we promote that and get it out there? And I think one of the bigger things is to start back, as some of the board members have said, getting some set dates at the various schools, floating it around with the community forums, because those were picking up a little momentum and valuable. But thank you. Can we get a safety update, like video? Is that kind of possible? But I just threw that in there, I'm sorry.
President Dorsey, if that's what you want, that's what we'll do, you know. Okay, all right. All right. Okay. All right, well, we'll make it happen.
Real quick, sorry. I noticed, in the list of things that we've done, that we have really implemented some good safety-focused activities, such as Stop the Bleed, and making sure that, physically taking care of our students is a big thing. Tim knows where I'm going with this. Noxolone training and making sure we have it accessible. Like, that has got to become a priority. You never want to use it, but having it there can save lives.
Is that Narcan?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
No, we don't have any.
Next two items are action items. We'll move through those about everybody.
Yep, I'm first on the goals.
Yes, sir. Dr. Hanson will be first on those action item goals.
Good evening, board. Tonight I present to you my 2023-2024 superintendent goals. I'm going to run through these quickly, and then I will share more detailed information with you at a later time. Attendance goal 1, last year we made great strides with our attendance. We are going to continue that priority goal for the upcoming school year. Our goal is 97%. I want to state that, but we recognize that is a tall task, and we wanted to allow ourselves an opportunity to grow. Last year, our goal was a 5% growth. As you know, the higher you get, the harder it is to grow. So this year, I present and propose a 2% growth from the previous school year. You will notice on this particular one, our data source is Synergy. That is our student information system. So we will utilize the data that comes out of that system. The second goal, which is our first academic goal, the first goal of 4, we will continue to prioritize our iRead 3 proficiency. As you know, we made great gains here last year, but we still fall short of our 95% goal. I propose a 7% increase from the 22-23 school year. Our data source for this will be the Indiana GPS dashboard. I will share with you how data is being disaggregated out of that dashboard at a later time. They are tracking how long the student is in your system, and we did not get credit for some students who passed that were not in Warren Township for very long. So there is a difference in the data that was presented to you previously and that is available to the community on the Indiana GPS dashboard. Because of that, we are going to shift our focus of the data provided by the DOE. So those two goals will stay the same from last year. Academic goal number 2, we're excited about this one. We feel that this is going to have a significant penetration in our raising our iLearn scores, but also provide our students with lifelong skills that embody critical thinking. They embody higher level thinking and application of their learning. So I propose that we increase our writing proficiency on the iLearn assessment in grades 3 through 8 from 2.8% to 20%. I'm not, I'm proud to say we are at the 2.8%, but what we are finding is that because we have not focused in on writing for the last several years, our students are not getting scored. And when they don't get scored, that has a significant detriment to their overall iLearn score. So last year, and we're continuing to focus on the foundation of reading, you're going to see, and hopefully you're hearing and seeing a focus on writing. But we feel that that is an obtainable, bold goal in order to get our kids really putting their thinking on paper or tablet. Academic goal number 3 is an NWA math and reading growth goal. Last year, we were proud to share with you that we met 13 of the 16 targets. Ryan, correct me, this year we're doing 8th grade, but we're not doing kindergarten at the beginning. So how many growth targets will we have altogether? Okay, so we'll still include them, but we're now going to be at 18 growth targets. So our goal is to increase our, to meet all 18 growth targets in reading and math. And as you saw with Dr. Klein, great job, Raymond Park, hitting that 50 percentile or higher is the target. And so we had this conversation where we talked about stacking the growth. And we're going to give Julie French credit for that. We're going to continue to do that with that goal. When we were at CUBE this past weekend, I attended a session from a district that not only do they stack the growth, they didn't use that term, but that's our term. They move students to the right. So academic goal number 3 is stacking the growth. We're going to continue to do that. But as Dr. Klein said, growth only gets us so far. We've got to continue to move our students to the right. So a bold goal that we are going to put forth this school year is for students in grades 3rd through 8th for NWA math and reading, we are going to increase their achievement percentile by at least 10%. And our data source for both of those will be the NWA reports. You know, right now, when you look at how our kids are comparing nationally, it's not where we want them to be. It's not where they need to be. As we talk about college and career readiness and getting them prepared for their Monday after graduation, these pivotal years in grades 3 through 8 are so important. So as I mentioned tonight, this is just kind of an overview. I will share key metrics with you and key initiatives on how we will go about accomplishing these goals or working toward them, and we will follow the same pattern as we did last year, where I will give you updates along the school year. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I do ask for your approval for these goals tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Julie.
Oh, I just want to say that I think those are some good goals, some really good goals. And if we focus on those goals, I think that we can see some improvement. So I'm a positive thinker, you guys. So great.
Any more discussion? Okay. Get it back? Okay, got it back. Good.
Dr. Klein, they just raised the bar for us.
Just about the skin of your teeth. Yeah. Of course, a motion approved. Okay. Next agenda action item is school resource officer compensation. Marcus?
President Dorsey, Dr. Hanson, members of the board, and our Warren community, I would like to, for action, I'm pleased to announce some significant changes to the compensation structure for our school resource officers here in the MSD of Warren Township. Is there I wasn't sure if we attached a memo to it, but is it there? All right, thank you. The changes underscore our commitment to investing in our SROs, attracting and retaining top talents, and enhancing the safety and security of our learning environment. Again, we propose that the starting pay for our full-time SROs, that we increase it from where it currently stands at $24.70 per hour to a starting pay of $30 per hour. We've also proposed to expand the MSD of Warren Township Police salary schedule to include hourly rates through 10 steps representing 11 years of experience. This would go in effect for our certified township officers that go through ILEA training. And in addition to that, for our current SROs, those who are currently at step 2, which is $27.35 per hour, will move to the new step 2, which will be $30.75 per hour. We propose that these changes would go in effect starting with that pay period, September 23rd, 2023, the beginning of the next new pay period. SROs who have not yet worked a year or have not completed ILEA certified will be paid at the new step 1, which would be $30 an hour. Moving forward, all SROs will advance to the next salary schedule step at the start of a new contract year, July 1, until they reach that last step. We believe these changes will contribute significantly to our goal of fostering a secure, orderly, and conducive learning environment for all. For your
I
action.
would like to make the motion. Sorry.
Again, any discussion? Do?
I think our SROs and our officers work very, very hard. I think this is a long overdue for them, but I also hope it helps us to recruit some more officers into our boat. Yes, absolutely.
What's not to like? All in favor? Let's go ahead and vote.
Thank you.
Next item is action item 11.03. Dr. Hanson.
Good evening, Board. Last month, I brought to you several bylaws for revision, and I was able to talk to a few of you prior to tonight's meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but tonight I asked for those, for your approval on those items.
You know what, I am really, really sorry, but is it possible for us to postpone this into another meeting, because I still have some questions about this area?
On what?
On the bylaws?
On all of this. On this section, if we could just postpone it until the next meeting?
Many of the items were small revisions, so if there's any one that you want to pull out, or
you want to just go through each one now?
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to walk through each one of those so you get a little bit of clarity there. Okay.
Could you, I think it would be more efficient if you could ask me your question.
Do you want me to?
Ms. Gloria, if you have any questions, sorry.
Tim and I both attend the Neola meetings, so I was offering to help pinch it. But.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it.
Now, what you're suggesting is that we start with election and the eligibility to serve? And then walk right through those? Appointment of board members, compensation?
Pull them up. or do the board members have access to them?
We've got them. Okay, so the first one is eligibility and election eligibility to serve. And this is all state statute. Like, we don't really get to determine who's eligible to serve and/or how they can be elected. This is all, everything in this policy, in the bylaw, is straight from state law for that.
So are you saying, you know, eligibility, like when we run for election and stuff like that?
Correct. So you have to live here, you have to be above the age of 18, you have to be a citizen who's registered to vote. You can't have been convicted of a felony. There's more. You can't be a current member of the armed forces on active duty. You can't hold another elected office. Like all of those things that are in state law, that's just what it says.
Okay, so what are we changing about that? It's always been like that, so what are we changing?
We're just updating the language to include all of the items that are required. So if you look at the red line version of the policy, they just listed the school board member has to follow the things defined in Indiana law, was in essence what the policy said. This is putting in what those things are in Indiana law. It's just copying the code and putting it in the policy.
Okay, so just sort of listing them, okay.
Correct.
Great, okay.
I don't think I have them pulled up in order. So term is 4 years. That's state law for MSDs. So it's just explicitly saying that.
So nothing has changed there?
No.
Okay.
In fact, oath is the same thing. This is just including what the oath is. And again, the oath is not something we have a choice about. The oath is prescribed to us by the state of Indiana. So this is just inserting what the oath is.
Okay.
And stating that you have to take it within 30 days and it has to be turned in, and our attorneys handle all of that, as you know.
Great.
Vacancy and appointment of board members. I know everyone but Kevin has been through this process recently, and this is just the same thing. So the only changes to this are literally stating that once it's posted, that people who are submitting letters of interest submit those to the president. We have to name who they submit them to. We've named the president, which is what we did last time around when we did it.
Okay.
Compensation, again, this is all state law, that we're paid $2,000 per year, and that our per diem is set by IPS, is Board of Commissioners, and that's the same thing that we vote on every January when we have our organizational meeting. So that's saying that. And then there's also language that if we're turning in a voucher for expenses, that we have 60 days to do it, which is the same for staff. Next one is ethics. It just, how to be ethical. Like, and this is not state law. This is copied from ISBA's Board of Ethics. So I guess technically we don't legally have to do it, but as a board we want to be ethical, and ISBA is our governing body, so to speak, so we use their definition of ethics. And then electronic meetings, so this is when people, I will call out myself and LaShawna, have to attend electronically, or anyone else. So state law says we can attend electronically, but it has to be no more than so many meetings in a row and no more than so many meetings a year, and you have to have a majority in person. This is just explicitly stating that. So it's all that stuff that was already in state law. There are some exceptions, those are also listed. And then the change is, again, that you have to, if you're going to attend electronically, you need to let someone know, because otherwise, obviously our wonderful technology people can't set up the technology to make it happen. And that is all of the bylaws.
Thank you so much, Rachel. That really clarified a lot for me. Thank you, and I am so sorry to the board, but I really needed that clarification. Thank you. I am ready to vote.
Oh, I moved to accept them, sorry.
I second.
Thank you, Kim.
Any more discussion? Ayes have it. Motion passed. Next action item is 11.04. Brian Simpkins.
President Dorsey, Dr. Hanson, members of the board, last month I brought before you for discussion a series of policies. They are grouped together by policy content area, so to speak, regarding policies that apply to administrators, professional staff, and support staff in those areas. So the first one up is dealing with nursing mothers, and that's policies 1425, 3425, which are new, administrators and professional staff, and then 4425, which was already updated language for the support staff policy that was already in place. So it's simply, we've always had, by state law, had to follow the requirements for those working mothers who want to express breast milk while they're at work. And now it's even more imperative with the aptly acronymed Pump Act, Federal Pump Act, and Pregnancy Workers Fairness Act. So if anybody has any, okay.
Any discussion? Okay, let's take the vote.
I'd like to make a motion.
I made the motion.
You made the motion. I thought somebody seconded.
I made it. I don't know.
And he seconded.
Second?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Any discussion? Okay, no discussion. We'll go for the vote. Kevin second. The motion is approved. Next item.
Yes.
Brian Simpkin again, 11.05.
This next group of policies is for regarding tobacco use prevention and use of tobacco on school property. The tobacco use prevention applies to administrators, professional staff, support staff, and students. And then the use of tobacco on school property is word for word the same policy, but it applies to visitors on our property and our campuses. And so it further updates based on the Indiana Department of Health Committee on Tobacco Prevention and Cessation, and also commits the superintendent to provide curriculum and materials on the importance of prevention of tobacco use and the dangers of secondhand smoke and so on. And it does a very extensive job of covering just about every form of tobacco you could possibly imagine being used, and any kind of device that one could use as well.
Can I get a motion?
I second.
Any discussion? Let's go for the vote. Motion's approved.
Thank you.
Next item is 11.06.
Yes, the next grouping of policies has to do with personal background checks, references, and mandatory reporting. So that's policies 1521, 3121, and 4121 for, again, administrators, professional staff, and support staff. This one's extremely important. There's rarely a day that goes by where I don't scrutinize the backgrounds of every employee that we hire. So when you look at my HR report and you see all those names of new hires, so I take it very seriously. And so what this policy does is updates the language with regard to background checks, everything from the stipulations involved with expanded criminal history checks, the DCS check for certified employees, the Indiana Department of Education license suspension check. And so, and then it covers mandatory reporting of arrests. And then finally, there's a key section. Many of the sections are in light of Senate Enrolled Act 115 to various parts of the Indiana Code in terms of who you can hire and what convictions you're not allowed to hire. One area in particular is Senate Bill 342 that allows for a list of certain convictions that if they're convicted and we hire them, the board would have to approve those on a separate report as part of the consent agenda.
Can we get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Julie and Gloria. I wanted to just add quickly, in case anyone else, because it took me a while to parse this, 342, the Senate Enroll Act changes Indiana Code 2026-511-2B to a completely, well, it's a similar but completely different list. And so if anyone else was looking it up and wondering why some of those things were reasons to never hire anyone ever, that has changed, and you needed the new code citation and not the old one, which was a lot.
Yes.
Okay, take the vote.
I'm sorry, Brian, with the background checks for the clearance, the ones that may need a waiver or board approval, will we also have like the, will you also list like what the infraction or the criminal?
There will not be mention of the actual conviction, but you would be informed.
Okay, that's,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, a lot of us fellow HR people, we were a little concerned when this passed that we were going to out people.
Right.
That was a real
yeah.
concern of ours, so, but we will follow through. We'll make sure there is a public report.
That was, I mean,
Yeah.
to be honest, that was my real concern early
Yes.
on, is it was
Mine too,
any-
believe me, I do not want to out people.
like, there were some convictions that they could have been 20 years ago for fairly minor infractions.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you can't hire them. That's what I was starting to freak out about, but luckily I was able to.
Yes, yes. So, great question, though, yeah.
I just want to know how we would know and
You would
not
be informed for
publicly
sure.
put it out there,
Right.
you know, in this list, would it be listed on the side? So thank you for
Sure.
the clarification.
That's a great question.
Am I correct that this has to be done every 2 years or something? We have 2 years to get every employee through?
Every 5 years, we do a check with current employees, and we cover the cost of that as just the price of doing business. But we do every 5 years internally.
Okay.
Do an expanded criminal history check.
Well, I was just talking about the DCS check and all the new things that have come
Yeah.
along with it. Who's covering all of those costs?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Next action item is 11.07, Matt.
Good evening, President Dorsey, members of the board, Dr. Hanson. I've got 3 items asking for the board's approval on this evening. The first is an update to Board Policy 6250. This is a wording update. It changes wording throughout the policy from will and must to shall, and that's the extent of the policy update.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? We'll take the vote. Motion carries. Matt?
Thank you. The second policy for this evening is one that we discussed last month, Board Policy 6320. Policy 6320 governs purchases using funds other than federal funds. There was a change in state law in the past legislative session that modified the allowable quotes threshold, and so our proposal to the board is to align our quotes threshold with the state's threshold. So we could make purchases through the quotes process between $50,000 and $300,000. and then we would use bids past 300,000. There were other minor adjustments in the policy, naming chief financial officer as the purchasing agent in line with the way that we conduct business today.
So moved. I'll second it.
Any discussion? We'll take the vote. We haven't gotten there. We haven't
That'll
gotten
be the next one.
No. Purchasing is what we're left.
I can do this.
Motion pass. Matt?
Okay, thank you. And as Ms. Williams alluded to, the third policy this evening is Policy 6550. Policy 6550 deals with travel payments and reimbursements. This policy essentially does two things, or the changes we're bringing to the board. The first is it says for travel reimbursement or payment involving airfare, the board's policy is to authorize the most economical form of airfare. And then the second policy is simply a statement that we do not reimburse for relocation costs. I'd be happy to answer any questions. There are, especially in the private sector, there could be instances where if an employee is going to relocate from another area to the east side of Indianapolis, for instance, we would pay the cost for that employee to move to the east side of Indianapolis. But we're not recommending to the board that we implement that as a policy. Yeah. So the general idea with the most economical flights is it's going to be the responsibility of the employee to take the least expensive flight between two different places if they're required to travel. There's an exception in the policy if it would create, for instance, a schedule that's not reasonable or be excessively longer than would otherwise be the case. In practical terms, the way that we carry this out is if an employee chooses to take a flight that for whatever reason they want to fly in business class instead of economy class, we'll reimburse them through the economy class total, and then the employee will make up the difference because they've made that voluntary choice.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Let's take the vote. Motion pass.
Thank you.
Next agenda items are discussion items. There's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from Ryan Russell.
Good evening, guys. President Dorsey, Dr. Hanson, members of the board. There's 5 discussion policies up here. I'm not going to go in order. 4 of them are closely linked. The first one's not linked to the others. The first one I'll bring to your attention is policy 5720, which is titled Student Activism. This is a new policy that simply states that if part of a course that there's any type of political activism, lobbying, or efforts made to persuade a state official, that students aren't required to adopt or affirm the personal belief of the instructor, and if so, not if they're required to adopt. However, if that is part of the class, that they're allowed to choose whatever viewpoint that they want to during that activity. The next 4 are closely linked. I'm going to start off with 2414, reproductive health and family planning and human sexuality instruction. This is in response to new Indiana code that explicitly states that students in grades 4 through 12 are the only students that should be taught and can be taught prevention, treatment, recognition of sexually transmitted diseases as part of the school health curriculum. It does state that if a student in grades K through 3 asks a question, a teacher can respond, but it shouldn't be part of the curriculum. Next policy, 2416. This one's titled Student Privacy and Parental Access to Information. The two main themes, one, sticking with the topic of human sexuality, but two, you probably heard a lot of language about just the use of surveys. Specifically, they were targeting, well, probably Panorama. But this doesn't apply completely to that because really it defines it as a survey or a personal analysis that really asks to collect students' political affiliations, religious beliefs, sexual behavior or attitudes, asking about any close student relationships with that. Regardless, if that's the case and a school district wants to do that, they have to have prior written consent from parents to do so. The other big part of this, which got a lot of attention statewide, is that when, due to Indiana Code 2030-7.5, that if a student, any student requests a name change, a pronoun change, or any really nickname, anything at all, that the school's required to notify the parent in writing within 5 business days. Again, that's, again, due to new Indiana code. Next, we have policy 9700, which is relations with special interest group. The only change really, or substantive change in here is talking about surveys again. Specifically, surveys in general of any kind had to be approved by the superintendent. And then any results from that survey from a third party, the results have to be shown to the superintendent before they can be published in any way, shape, or form. Next, I'm going to go with policy 2414. This is closely related to the previous one, again on human Did I already do that one? I already did that one. What am I missing? Mandatory curriculum. 2221, again, we've had this. I actually remember being with you guys last year updating this because I feel like we update it every year. But this specifically updates language about human sexuality being specific towards being taught in grades 4 through 12 only. And again, adds more language about prior written consent for any survey that would include information like religious beliefs, sexual identification, or anything of that nature. I'll be happy to answer any questions, but I'll be back next month and asking for your approval.
Anybody got any questions? Okay, we're now moving to closing comments. We'll start on this in here. Because I think the last time we started down here.
Terry guessed that. I've rewritten these a couple times. While we were in the meeting, it was announced that Senator Jack Sandlin, who represents Perry Township and Places South, passed away this evening. And so we would be remiss in not recognizing that. And then obviously Christy Kaiser as well, who's going to be remembered tomorrow. And so if we could keep their families in our thoughts and prayers, I'm sure they would appreciate it.
Tonight was full of good things happening here in the district. Loved having Raymond Park. As a mother of children who had Miss Kaiser as a teacher, she will be greatly missed. Her influence on my children's life at such an impressionable age lasts a lifetime with them. Prayers to her family and to her friends and to the family at Grassy Creek.
Thank you, Julie, for acknowledging that. We will continue to keep those families in our prayers. Really quickly, I just wanted to thank everyone from WAVE and MCRC, on behalf of WAIF and MCRC for coming to the Joy concert. We were able to give 7 awards away. Rachel and Julie and Dave Prevost got the Humanitarian Award. Sheldon Day received the Alumni Award. Tracy Bush, Pride of the East Side. Thomas Cross with P30 received the Community Award. And Kelly Reed and Pastor Duncan also received a Community Award. So I just wanted to give that acknowledgement, great turnout. And then to announce upcoming, we are having our October Fall Festival with a mini community walk. So any schools, teams, clubs, we want the Pride of the East Side represented. We will walk from Central Office to MCRC. That will kick off the Fall Festival. So come out with your school logos, banners, all that, maybe that drum line with the cheerleaders. It's going to be an awesome time. On that day, we will send out more information. And lastly, I would just like to thank Dr. Hanson for allowing the secretaries and front office workers to get introduced to the trauma training. It was feedback was great, and we just want to keep that momentum going. But I would be remiss not to say thank you for allowing us to come and be able to present to the secretaries. It's late. We've been here a long time, and you've been here even longer. Go home, grab a snack maybe. Might be too late for dinner, but be safe.
Good night, everybody. Go home and get some rest. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and all your hard work and efforts. I would like to just to remind and reiterate, with all the new development that's going on in our township, that's a lot of new families that don't know us, and we need to bring them in, welcome them in, make all these meetings we're talking about with security and all the things, make sure the word is out, because this is a whole new opportunity of growth. New students, new parents, and new everything, so we need to capitalize on that.
I would like to say I was so excited about Raymond Park. Ooh, you guys are doing an awesome job, and the students were just so delightful. And to see those cheerleaders, they look like they were in high school. Oh man, I'm just so excited. And the drummers, oh, well, I could go on and on. But I want everyone to remember, let us support our Hispanic heritage programs and activities that are going on. We want to make sure we give them our support. And also this weekend, please, if you can, support the Circle City Classic. It's going to be, I don't know whether any of our students are participating in the Classic.
The runner-up was from.
Okay, because they are going to have a parade on that morning. You want to talk about it too? Oh, she was shaking her head. You want to talk about the Classic? Okay. And we just want you to, because we want to see if any of our students are participating. And the game is so nice. And during halftime, they always have the Battle of the Bands. Oh, it is so awesome. So if you're not doing anything, please get tickets to go to the game for the Circle City Classic and attend the parade. I think it starts at 10. We'll turn it over to our student representative.
Really briefly, I will tell you guys that our very own Warren Central High School student, Christian Austin, she did win first runner-up for the Circle City Classic. And they will be, her as well as 2 other people did participate, and they will all be in the parade.
Thank you.
Sports people here, so I'm telling you, if you want to see a good sports game, come on to the Classic game. I'm promoting it. And then the Battle of the Bands is awesome.
Meeting adjourned.